Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to join us for this webinar. I hope that everybody's safe and well. I'm Matthew Campelli. I'm the Director of Sustainability at Touchline and the editor of the Sustainability Report, and I'll be your moderator for this webinar. Today, we're talking about how we can unlock value and carbon reductions through technology and partnerships. Today, our focus will be on the industrial sector. Although the sector has provided humanity with countless solutions that have made our lives easier and more convenient, it is responsible for a significant proportion of global carbon emissions. Indeed, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change's 2018 report revealed that 30% of the global greenhouse gas emissions come from the industrial sector. This has doubled over the 40-year period between 1970 and 2010. And this is a major problem because, according to the same report, greenhouse gas emissions are accelerating catastrophic and irreversible climate impacts. To save our planet from those impacts, we have to reduce our emissions. But therein lies the opportunity. The sectors that are responsible for the largest proportion of greenhouse gas emissions are the most ripe for improvement. If we can make significant progress in these areas, the impact could be profound. The IPCC says that a focus on low carbon technology, radical product innovation, and investing in nature can help the industrial sector drastically reduce its carbon footprint. And this will create a domino effect with a number of positive outcomes as a consequence, such as new business opportunities. It's estimated that finding solutions to climate change can unlock a $23 trillion economic opportunity. It can help organizations increase their efficiencies and reduce costs. It stimulates better environmental compliance, and there are health benefits to be had, which in the current context is hugely important. The opportunity to unlock value and reduce carbon emissions through this technology and partnerships is what our esteemed panel will be talking about today. And we'll be discussing it through the prism of Dow's carbon partnership with the International Olympic Committee, which is helping to accelerate these technologies and collaborations. Dow is helping the IOC balance its carbon footprint through material science and low carbon innovation in a number of sectors, including the built environment, packaging, and in the industrial sector. Today, our focus will be on the latter. Over the next hour, our panelists will tell you a story about how technology and collaboration is genuinely helping the industrial sector reduce its carbon footprint. Firstly, I'd like to introduce you to our panel. Firstly, we have Svetlana Oglobina, who is Dow's Strategic Marketing Manager, who will take you through Dow and the IOC's carbon partnership. Then we have Simon Phillips, who's the Director of Clean Energy and Industrial Innovation at NatureBank, who will define the successful partnerships and what innovations look like. Finally, Faye Miller, the Licensing and Catalyst Product Director at Dow Industrial Solutions, and PJ Marshall, the Founder and Executive Director of the Restore the Earth Foundation, will reflect on two projects within the partnership to illustrate carbon reductions and economic value. Thank you to you all for joining us today. Today we'll be discussing the following topics: what technology in the industrial sector is leveraging to reduce its carbon footprint, why organizations are investing in nature and what the business case is, and how sports marketing partnerships can accelerate innovation across a number of sectors. Just a little bit of housekeeping before we begin today. This webinar is being recorded and will be sent to your email inbox shortly afterwards. There'll be an interactive discussion at the end, so please enter any questions you would like to have our panelists answer into the Q&A section, into the Q&A tab. And we'll include 3 polls during the webinar so that the audience can get involved and so that we can gauge your opinions and your experiences too. Before we begin, I want all of you to ponder our first poll question, which we'll review at the end of the first section. It's a nice, easy yes or no question. Is addressing climate change a strategic priority for your organization? But before we answer that, let's hand over to Svetlana, who'll discuss the Dow and IOC carbon partnership in more detail. Hello, Svetlana.
Hi, thank you all for joining us. I'm really honored to be part of this webinar, and let me set the stage for our distinguished speakers and briefly introduce Dow and our carbon partnership with IOC. We believe it is a very good example how we can work together to accelerate climate action. But first, let me introduce Dow. Dow is a leading material science company. Our ambition is to be the most sustainable, innovative, customer-centric, and inclusive material science company in the world. Our portfolio of technologies, as Simon mentioned, delivers a broad range of highly differentiated products in various applications, including industrial processes, packaging, built environment, and consumer care. Sustainability has been always the cornerstone of Dow's business. We believe that what is good for society and environment is also good for the business. Over the last 30 years, our sustainability journey has evolved from focusing on Dow's carbon footprint and operations to developing more sustainable products for our customers. Currently, we are on the third generation of sustainability goals with a focus on so-called blueprint thinking. It reflects our belief that only through collaboration we can accelerate our positive impact to address challenges that no organization can solve alone. Our carbon partnership with IOC is an example of such a blueprint thinking that redefines the role of both sport and business in transition towards a sustainable future. The main objective of this partnership is to balance unavoidable operational carbon footprint of the IOC itself. How? Through portfolio of carbon mitigation projects, which are delivering third-party verified climate benefits. Why we are doing this? Our projects are aimed at driving accelerated adoption of proven low-carbon technologies as a positive legacy of our partnership. Today, actually, we are celebrating the third year anniversary of our carbon partnership with IOC. But Dow has a very long history in the world of sport. Did you know that as a worldwide Olympic partner, Dow has already implemented 2 carbon programs with organizing committees of Sochi and Rio Olympic Games? The combined impact of all these 3 carbon programs is reduction of greenhouse gas emissions by more than 5 million metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalent. And it would be about 1 million cars taking off the road for 1 year in North America. And also last week, we were very proud to know that our carbon partnership with IOC has been named as a Sustainability Initiative of the Year by the Business Intelligence Group. Taking this opportunity on behalf of Team Dow, let me thank all our partners around the globe, including our panelists today, to share this prestigious recognition with them. Well, is there any secret ingredients for our success? We think that based on our experience, it's really the combination of 3 key components that helps us make things done. First, we focus on proven and economically viable low carbon technologies and nature-based solutions. In fact, as you know, many of them were developed some time ago already, but for different reasons were not widely adopted by the market. That's why all our carbon projects are aimed at driving the accelerated adoption by removing perceived or real barriers, by educating key decision makers about their climate, societal, and economic benefits. Secondly, we use the convening power of sport to push the boundaries and amplify our story. Just the Olympic Games challenge athletes, our program inspires our customers, value chain partners to go beyond business as usual for a more sustainable future. And last but not least, we validate our results. All our claims about climate benefits are validated and verified by third party. Moreover, all our carbon projects are developed together with the best-in-class carbon project developers and in accordance with the world-leading standards documented in our climate solution framework. And Simon Phillips from NatureBank will talk about it later. Currently, we have 20 projects in our portfolio. Today, you will learn about 2 of them, and you will see how much science behind each of them: carbon accounting science, material science, and nature-based science. Faye Miller, my colleague from Dow Industrial Solutions, will talk about our project with Petronas and present Dow's enabling proprietary technology for industrial application. PJ Marshall will present our carbon mitigation project with Restore the Earth Foundation, focused on reforestation and how we incentivize investment in nature-based solutions. To summarize my short presentation, really my takeaway for you is many technologies and solutions to mitigate carbon impact already exist. The innovation needed is how we challenge business as usual and collaborate. When it comes to climate change, we know that speed and size actually matters. And it's only by working together in new ways through innovation in collaboration, we can accelerate adoption of best-in-class solutions and achieve the scale and impact we needed. We believe that our current partnership with IOC is a great example of such innovative triple win collaboration, where the platform of science and the power of sport unite to drive adoption of state-of-the-art technologies for a positive climate legacy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Svetlana, for running us through that part of the presentation. Before we move on to the second part, I'd like to get our audience involved now and get them thinking about the first poll question that we asked at the very beginning of the conversation. Is addressing climate change a key strategic priority for your organization? So I'm going to launch a poll now, and it'd be great if you could take a few seconds to answer it. It's a very simple yes or no question. Is addressing climate change a key strategic priority for your organization? So we'll let this run for about 30 seconds or so, just to see what kind of input we get. So at the moment, what I can see, it's heavily weighted towards yes, which is a good thing. And it looks like around 80 to 90% of you are saying that your organization addresses climate change as a key strategic priority. Just 5 more seconds now to give everyone a chance to vote. Okay, let's close that poll now, and I'll share the results with you. So 87% of you said yes, addressing climate change is a key strategic priority for your organization. Only 13% said no. Shortly, we'll be handing it over to Simon, but firstly, I want you to get thinking about our second poll question, which we'll pose to you after his part of the presentation. In your opinion, does addressing climate change present a viable business opportunity? So have a little think about that while we're handing over to Simon. So now to talk about innovation and partnerships, I will hand the floor over to Simon. Hello, Simon. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thanks, Matthew. So NatureBank has been working on the design and implementation of emission reduction projects for over a decade. And we've had the privilege of supporting Dow with the implementation of their various carbon programs over the years, starting with the Sochi 2014 Games. NatureBank is headquartered in Canada, and we were the official carbon offset supplier of the Vancouver 2010 Olympic Games, which was a key milestone in our development as a company, and it started us on our journey to support the sustainability of sports and sporting events. And since we began that journey, there have been many changes in the climate policy landscape. However, a constant theme for all stakeholders involved has been an increasing ambition to match the increasing awareness of the climate challenge before us. So as Matthew alluded to, in 2018, the IPCC confirmed that in order to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees above pre-industrial levels, we need to reach net zero emissions at the global level by mid-century, which is an enormous challenge and requires a commitment and level of coordination that involves all facets of the global economy. And we can broadly categorize solutions into two types, and those solutions are clear. It's clear that in order to solve the problem, we have to rapidly accelerate the market adoption of climate solutions. So the two broad categories of solutions are climate solutions that involve emission reductions. So in other words, the decarbonization of existing industries. And the second type are climate solutions that involve greenhouse gas removal. So activities such as afforestation or reforestation that remove carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, which compensates for the residual emissions that exist in a decarbonized economy. So the pressing question is, how do we unlock these climate solutions at the scale needed? Our modern economies are highly integrated, and many of the core products and services that we consume are generated across complex and globally distributed supply chains that involve many stakeholders. And while a given supply chain or value chain may contain many potential scalable low carbon optimizations, unlocking those solutions may face significant barriers due to the inherent complexity of those chains. So one key, collaboration in the form of strategic partnerships between value chain stakeholders is often required to unlock emission reductions. and another key is innovation in the form of applied technologies. And often each of those keys provides positive feedback to the other, wherein collaborations yield new innovations and vice versa. And companies with global capabilities and operations that serve a global customer base are very well positioned to play a leading role in opening this lock. Dow is such a company with an ambitious sustainability vision that has implemented carbon programs across, rather as a result of strategic partnerships, which have delivered portfolios of projects across many industries and value chains. And the carbon programs have incentivized both collaboration and innovation to produce scalable climate solutions. So it's worth taking a moment to refresh ourselves on what innovation is. We can start by saying what it is not. Innovation is not simply invention. So there are many existing technologies that have the potential to realize significant emission reductions or removals that are currently residing in the lab or in the R&D department, or that are constrained to the pilot or bench scale. These technologies have yet to reach market. So it's only when these technologies attain a suitable level of market adoption that we can say that innovation has occurred. In other words, innovation is applied invention. And it's very often necessary to create incentives to innovate, to enable stakeholders to overcome the barriers that are preventing market penetration. So the Dow IOC Carbon Partnership is one example of collaboration at the program level that incentivizes climate solutions at the project level. So it's incentivizing project activities that are increasing the market adoption of climate solutions compared to business as usual. And these project activities are developed according to a well-established process that is utilized in both voluntary and compliance systems. So put simply, the project activities are incentivized by external investment, and the resulting emission reductions from the implemented activities can be used to address the investing organization's unavoidable emissions. And the project activities are developed in a transparent and consistent manner, and the quantified emission reductions are realized through third-party validation and verification, which are critical steps in the project cycle. So taking a project perspective when dealing with activities that can extend across a value chain, especially when dealing with circular economy projects or project activities with a circularity component, strategic partnerships are often required to realize emission reduction. And it's important that project partners not only set clear objectives, but also that they advance projects within a clear set of rules. This is why Dow created their Climate Solutions Framework, which is a framework that integrates best practice international standards on carbon project development and carbon accounting, including the ISO 14060 series, WRI, CDM, and BCS standards. And the framework enables accurate and conservative quantification of emission reductions across the entire value chain of projects, products, and activities. A key element within the framework is projects must demonstrate additionality, or in other words, they must demonstrate that the project activity is going beyond business as usual. And one of the potential methods in the demonstration process is the assessment of the market penetration of the project activity in the relevant market. It's worth noting that to date, many of the projects developed under the Dow framework have been demonstrated to be what are called first of its kind projects, whereby the market adoption of the project technology was essentially yet to be realized in the business as usual scenario. So we're seeing a clear demonstration of the market adoption of innovative climate solutions under the Dow IOC partnership. It's also important to note that there are two main phases of project development. First is the design phase, whereby project stakeholders develop the project plan, also known as the project design document, which contains the detailed project description and description of the baseline or business as usual scenario, as well as a detailed description of how the emission reductions will be quantified. And then the second phase is the implementation phase, whereby the project activity begins and it's tracked through specific monitoring activities from which the emission reductions are quantified and reported for the specified monitoring period. And each of those two phases is punctuated by an external third-party audit, which provides assurance on the accuracy, conservativeness, and quality of the asserted climate benefits. And each of those phases has its own challenges. When implementing projects that are based on strategic partnerships, of stakeholders across a supply or value chain. There are some key elements that will help ensure that the strategic partnership is successful. Now, in the first webinar in this series, 3 foundational building blocks were identified by Dow that enable a successful collaboration. And these elements were presented within the context of the Dow IOC Carbon Partnership or program level. So a very similar set of elements equally applies to partnerships at the project level. So they're strategic alignment, long-term commitment, and continuous improvement. Strategic alignment between partners will ensure that the project design phase is focused on the most appropriate areas. So partners with similar priorities, such as a sense of urgency and embracing the full value chain, will maximize the emission reductions potential of a project and their activities, and even potentially uncover additional emission reductions that can be included within that project boundary. Having a long-term commitment amongst project partners will ensure that the climate ambition of that project is realized during the implementation phase. So for example, if monitoring activities are distributed amongst project partners, then it is incumbent upon all relevant partners to maintain those activities during the period defined in the project plan. And then lastly, when partners share a continuous improvement mindset, then there'll be an increased ambition to manage and adapt any project constraints or implementation hurdles as they arise. And with that, I'll pass it back to you, Matthew.
Thank you very much, Simon, for that part of the presentation. Really interesting. Okay, so let's hand over to the audience again for our second poll question. And this one's slightly more complicated. In your opinion, does addressing climate change present a viable business opportunity? So in other words, do you see the business case in addressing climate change? So we'll ask that question to you at the end of, and we'll ask that question to you now. So I will launch the poll now. And the options are absolutely, there is a big opportunity for addressing climate change. Yes, there is a business opportunity. We regard it as an opportunity. Somewhat an opportunity. No, not really. Addressing climate change is not good for business. Okay, coming into our last 5 seconds now, give everyone an opportunity to vote. Okay, and we'll close the poll now. So the good news is that at least 2/3 of you think absolutely yes, addressing climate change does present a viable business opportunity. 16% say yes, we regard it as an opportunity. 20% are kind of on the fence, somewhat an opportunity. 1% not really, and thankfully 0% say addressing climate change is not good for business. Okay, so we'll hide that and we'll move on to the third part of our presentation, and we'll get you thinking about the very last part of our last poll. So based on today's webinar, where do you see the most impact coming from in terms of addressing climate change? But this one will give you a few more minutes to think about, because we'll listen to both Faye and PJ in the next section. So now we'll move on to Faye, who will talk in more detail about Dow's low carbon innovation. Hello, Faye. It's nice to hear from you.
Thanks, Matthew, and a very good day to our participants. There's no doubt our world faces pressing sustainability challenges, such as climate change and the preservation of resources like water, energy, and food. In Dow Industrial Solutions, a business segment of Dow, we're driving sustainability today to enable a better, faster, and cleaner tomorrow, all while returning long-term value to Dow, our customers, and value chains. We're working hard to meet these needs and make a positive impact on the world by focusing our efforts in 4 areas: circular economy, climate protection, safer materials, and resource efficiency. And we do this by providing solutions to address sustainability challenges while reducing our operational and supply chain footprint. So what type of solutions are we providing? Well, there's a lot of great work going on in Dow Industrial Solutions. We estimate the products in our portfolio are helping avoid around 5 million metric tons of CO2 each year. That's the same as taking 1 million cars off the road. Here's just a small glimpse of some of our solutions. In the space of circular economy, Dowtherm, which is a heat transfer fluid used in concentrated solar power plants is being regenerated so it can be used again. In the area of safer materials, our EcoSurf surfactants are readily biodegradable. In the space of resource efficiency, EcoFast Pure Sustainable Textile Treatment helps apparel brands create color by using significantly less chemicals, water, and energy to dye cotton. And a key project to address climate change, which I'm directly involved with and am passionate about, is in the field of ethylene oxide. Ethylene oxide, or EO, is an important raw material essential in consumer product manufacturing. EO production processes are energy intensive and create carbon dioxide as a byproduct of the reaction. A typical world-scale EO plant produces more than 100,000 metric tons of CO2 every year. Dow's Meteor EO Retro 2000 catalyst enables producers of EO, including Dow, to increase plant performance while reducing energy consumption and CO2. It's estimated that in a typical world-scale EO plant, the emission reductions would be equivalent to taking 10,000 cars off the road annually. The reduction in CO2 enabled by the implementation of Meteor EO Retro 2000 catalyst, commonly referred to as MR2000, led to the catalyst being a supported project within the Dow IOC Carbon Partnership. Our project is comprised of two main components. First, entering into a carbon agreement with Dow's first customer of MR2000, who is Petronas Chemicals Glycols of Malaysia, to deliver third-party verified climate benefits to the Dow IOC Carbon Program. And secondly, launching the Dow Carbon Challenge Contest in 2018 to incentivize EO producers to adopt MR2000 and to encourage all users of the catalyst to strive for better plant performance to reduce carbon emissions. A logical question you may be thinking is, how is it that MR2000 is able to deliver this value? Well, the upshot is that the catalyst has a higher life average selectivity, meaning that it converts more of the olefin to EO, and a longer life while doing some or all of the following: running at higher than nameplate capacity, running at significantly lower reactor temperature at later catalyst life, which is beneficial for reducing impurities and supporting longer duration between catalyst changes. It can also operate at high reactor inlet CO2 and or reactor inlet water vapor concentration, which supports energy savings. It can operate at lower oxygen concentration when needed for increased safety. And if desired for further energy savings, it can run at reduced cycle gas pressure and flow rates. Further contributing to the value is that the catalyst is easy and quick to start up and ramp up, leading to more production. This is supported by several cases whereby full rates were achieved within 8 hours after feeding oxygen, and that the selectivity improved after restart. The catalyst is also robust to process changes and upsets, thanks to a wider operating window to allow selectivity to recover quickly with simple changes. For these reasons and others are why we refer to Meteor as the most effective technology for ethylene oxide reaction. The Meteor technology is not new. We have a long, rich history of delivering technology in the field of ethylene oxide ethylene glycol. To achieve success, we combine our process design understanding with our unique catalysts and our manufacturing expertise. Over the past 20 years, you can see that we have interspersed improvements to the process flow sheet with new catalyst introductions. In 2009, we had a major catalyst breakthrough when we launched the first generation of the Meteor EO Retro family of catalysts. And retro refers to the ease of retrofitting the catalyst into any oxygen-based EO process. Specific to the Meteor EO Retro family of catalysts, we continue to develop this platform due to such strong market acceptance. In 2013, we made a significant step change when we commercialized MR2000 in a Dow plant. This is the catalyst that has been the focus of the Dow IOC carbon program. Before Dow completed its first run, Petronas implemented MR2000 in their own plant. Then in 2018, MR2000 was implemented in the first third-party plant without requiring any changes to the process, and it's running very well. For clarity, by third party, we mean that the catalyst is not being run in a Dow licensed EOEG process. Today, MR2000 is operating in 15 plants with 9 completed charges. And the longest run is at 52 months and expected to run 64 months. That's almost twice as long that a typical high selectivity catalyst runs. And I'm pleased to announce today that the next generation of Meteor EO Retro Catalyst is planned to commercialize in a Dow plant in 2021. We also have additional prototypes in varying stages of development, thanks to our strong R&D capabilities and our voice of customer feedback. Subsequent generations of catalysts are expected to further reduce CO2 emissions, as sustainability is a cornerstone of our R&D programs. I mentioned that Petronas became the first customer to use MR2000. As with Dow, Petronas experienced increased plant performance with reduced carbon emissions through implementing MR2000. Petronas, like Dow, also views sustainability as a business imperative and is committed to sustainable production growth and operational excellence. Recognizing such parallels between our two companies, Dow approached Petronas on becoming the first carbon savings contributor to the carbon partnership between Dow and the IOC. And we are so pleased that Petronas agreed to collaborate with us. By way of the carbon agreement, Petronas will be relinquishing its verified carbon credits as a result of MR2000 implementation in favor of the Dow IOC carbon partnership to help balance the operational carbon footprint of the IOC. Currently, Dow and Petronas are working together along with a third party to verify the climate benefits. As part of the carbon agreement, Petronas and Dow developed a case study on how MR2000 enables more efficient EO production, which can be found on Dow's website. Although this figure is still being validated, Petronas estimates that it has reduced approximately 24,000 metric tons of carbon dioxide emissions per year since implementing MR2000, while simultaneously achieving higher production. Higher catalyst selectivity and longer catalyst run length were the main contributors to higher production volume. And higher catalyst selectivity also contributed to a reduction in CO2 generation and energy consumption, ultimately leading to reduced CO2 emissions. Building off the carbon agreement with Petronas and our carbon accounting expertise, we furthered our outreach to allow others the opportunity to contribute to the legacy of the Dow IOC carbon partnership through the use of the proven MR2000 catalyst. So in 2018, we launched the Carbon Challenge Contest, which encouraged EO producers to adopt the MR2000 catalyst and to encourage all users of the catalyst to strive to achieve better plant performance, with the goal of reducing CO2 emissions. The Carbon Challenge Contest is wrapping up this month, and the 3 winners will be announced in October. The winners will receive an environmental impact report, which quantifies the carbon reduction of their performance. This will enable the winners to learn more about carbon accounting which is becoming an important topic. However, in this case, the winners will not relinquish their carbon credits in favor of the Dow IOC Carbon Partnership. In addition, the winners should be entitled to a money-can't-buy Olympic experience. We, however, hope that all participating companies view themselves as winners, with the real prize being a more sustainable future. I'd like you to take away the following points today. First, that Dow Industrial Solution has a wide portfolio of products to address sustainability challenges. Please check out the Dow website to learn more. Dow's EO/EG licensing and catalyst business has a long history of delivering innovations in both process and catalyst. MR2000 catalyst is proven in a variety of process designs, including Dow design processes, including non-Dow design processes, by simply being dropped in. The Petronas case study highlights the advantages of MR2000, which are improved plant economics, reduced CO2 emissions, and the value of collaboration. And lastly, Dow has a robust R&D program in place to innovate EO catalyst with the next generation of Meteor EO retro catalyst planned to commercialize in 2021. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll hand it back to you, Matthew.
Thank you very much, Faye, for that extensive insight. Just a reminder to our listeners and people in the audience, please, there's still an opportunity to ask questions if you want to get questions across to our panel. Now I'd like to hand it over to PJ, who will discuss a project that focuses on the environmental, social, and economic aspect of investing in nature. Great to have you, PJ. The floor is yours.
Thanks, Matthew. I'd like to share with you the Dow and Restore the Earth partnership and the power and value of investment in the oldest, most simple, cost-effective carbon capture technology there is, which is restoring Mother Earth's forest. Restore the Earth Foundation is a not-for-profit with a very big vision. Restoring the Earth's essential forest and wetland ecosystems and doing it on a landscape scale, with an approach using metrics to measure the value and impact to move reforestation into the mainstream and make it a priority. So how are we defining landscape scale reforestation? To us, landscape scale reforestation is a holistic approach that integrates environmental, social, and economic concerns within the restoration framework. It ensures that habitat and communities are enhanced by reforestation, all in self-sustaining systems. It's cost-effective, highly impactful, and takes the long-term perspective of generations, decades, and centuries. Restore the Earth's work was born out of disasters. Hurricane Katrina and Rita. The hurricane destruction, as most of us know, not only had a major human impact, but ecologically it created the largest forestry disaster in U.S. history, with over 350,000 acres of forest destroyed. Knowing that at the start that Restore the Earth could accomplish little without partners, we brought together community stakeholders, federal and state agencies, major corporations, philanthropic organizations, and investors to get reforestation on the ground and deliver on tens of thousands of acres of reforestation. Two of our public partners, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and the USDA Natural Resource Conservation Service, led us right here to the Mississippi River Basin. We call it North America's Amazon. It's the third largest watershed on Earth, and it's so large that it covers 31 states and 2 Canadian provinces. This watershed provides for 60% of all the fresh water that flows into the Gulf of Mexico, and it's carrying along with it all the impacts of human activities. Millions of people and billions of dollars depend on its benefits. It's the breadbasket to the world, the #1 breadbasket to the world. If barge traffic stops on the Mississippi, Within 6 weeks, famine begins in Africa. In this blue area is the most ecologically degraded region in the United States, where there once was over 24 million acres of valuable hardwood forest. Now only 5 million acres remain. This area is also has the largest concentration of underserved communities in the United States. So, big challenges. And where there are big challenges, there are big opportunities. It turns out that our partners, U.S. Fish and Wildlife, has identified and prioritized a tipping point where 1 million acres of reforestation creates a major opportunity. A quick 10,000-foot view of the co-benefits of restoring this 1 million acres of forest is highlighted by the generation of over 200 million metric tons of carbon emission reductions. It also has the ability to reduce the nutrient runoff, creating the dead zone in the Gulf of Mexico by 12%, and the ability to generate over $12 billion in economic value. This project has the potential for big impacts locally, nationally, and globally. Restore the Earth really needed to scale up to get this reforestation underway. We knew we needed the full power of partnership and collaboration. We needed businesses, philanthropists, and investors of all kinds working together to lead the way for government to join in to tackle this big project and have a big impact. So with our public and private partners, we jointly created a big, bold, action and results-oriented business model. Our U.S. Fish and Wildlife partners in NRCS, with over 20 years of research and experience in the area, brought to Restore the Earth puzzle pieces for a business case with these major components. First of all, a portfolio of over 1 million acres of truly shovel-ready projects that have been identified and prioritized by a joint venture of 15 state and federal agencies. It's really hard to find anywhere in the world a project of this magnitude and importance that's in a concentrated area like this. Our public partners also brought an innovative funding model where every $1 of private funding that Restore the Earth can bring to the table is leveraged to access public funding to amplify the investment and the number of acres restored. They also brought a revolving fund where Restore the Earth legally owns all the green attributes of the reforestation projects and is able to recapture funds through revenues generated by marketing the green attributes, whether it's credits, benefits, emission reductions, offsets, and allowances. All of these restored areas have permanent conservation easements in place on the restored land, and with the easements being held by the NRCS, so we're assuring permanence. Several of our private corporate funders partnered with Restore the Earth to develop our ecometrics platform, now a cloud-based technology that accounts for, in monetized terms, the full value of all environmental, social, and economic co-benefits, all third-party verified, and a report that's ready for audit. The ecometrics cloud-based technologies is much more than a feel-good. It's real, not pie in the sky. The technology is aligned with and uses the most innovative, creditable, rigorous international methodologies and protocols and third-party verifiers. Critical to ecometrics is the focus on direct stakeholder engagement. So I'd like to give you a quick visual of this. Don't be fooled by how simple it looks, but it is private funding leveraged to access public funding. More invested, more acres restored, more social return on investment, more return on investment. Ecometrics reports on the value created in terms of what business truly understands. dollar signs. These powerful metrics can prove that a big vision of landscape scale reforestation delivers on hard asset values, and it also provides for amazing stories. This makes it work for corporations, philanthropists, and investors. And our public partners really value the ability to account for impacts too. So let's dig a little deeper by highlighting the Dow and Restore the Earth case study. Dow, as the official carbon partner of the International Olympics Committee, partnered with Restore the Earth to implement a nature-based solution project toward a net zero future. Dow saw the potential in Restore the Earth's landscape scale reforestation of 1 million acres in North America's Amazon to provide a solution for carbon emission reduction. Dow, sharing its big vision for addressing big sustainable changes, wanted to actively demonstrate the impact and value of on-the-ground investment in reforestation. The ability of Restore the Earth's ecometrics to capture the environmental, social, and economic co-benefits and value created by reforestation with real numbers and dollar values that could potentially flow right to the balance sheet was of major interest to Dow. The Dow Restore the Earth project is at Pointe-aux-Chenes, Louisiana, and is part of a 5,000-acre reforestation of a historic bald cypress forest that was destroyed by saltwater intrusion during Hurricane Katrina. The project owner and manager, our partner, the Louisiana Department of Wildlife and Fisheries, brought the project to Restore the Earth once the site was protected by a regional and federal levee system and ready for reforestation. The project site is the largest land mass left, protecting over 200,000 residents of 2 Louisiana parishes. The project is along the Gulf Coast, not too far from New Orleans, and is a project that provides for the first line of defense in the state of Louisiana's coastal master plan. It's important not only for the enhanced resiliency it can provide for the communities, but also holds traditional and spiritual value for 2 Native American tribes, the Pointe-aux-Chenes United Homa Nation and the Biloxi Chitimacha Choctaw Band. And it's why Restore the Earth does what it does. In Louisiana, degraded land the size of a football field is washing into the Gulf of Mexico every single hour. If we don't intercede, if not restored, no more land, and the people of these lands will be climate refugees right in our own backyard here in the United States. The 5,000-acre cypress reforestation stops land loss and generates over 1 million metric tons in carbon emission reduction to address our climate issues. Dow's investment, when matched with public funding, restores 400 acres, generating 80,000 metric tons of carbon emission reduction, and creates over $21 million in social return on investment and a return on investment. Real value for stakeholders in society at large. These impacts are local, regional, and national. There are abundant outcomes that come from reforestation at Pointe-aux-Chenes, and just a couple of highlights is the full stop of land loss and the ability to add an additional land structure. The community protection and resiliency from flooding and storm is very important in this area, and the 2 native tribes are able to resume practicing their traditions and sustain their culture. It's a real win-win for all. This snapshot of the Pointe-aux-Chenes reforestation ecometrics of the whole 5,000-acre project and the stakeholders who benefit from it shows that the largest stakeholder group benefiting from this 5,000-acre reforestation are the communities surrounding the site. For every $1 invested in this project, the returns are $14 in environmental, social, and economic value. Ecometrics measures and accounts for the value and impacts of the investment that provides for integrated reporting on a financial balance sheet. The ability to provide for carbon emission reductions, as well as the metrics to monetize additional co-benefits, was attractive for Dow. Restore the Earth's approach has also facilitated the engagement of a very diverse, in many cases, very unlikely partnerships who have joined together. They're all working together to take bold action and invest in the oldest, most simple, cost-effective carbon capture technology, landscape scale reforestation. Back to you, Matthew.
Thank you very much, PJ, for that great presentation. Now we're going to hand over to all of our speakers to have a little bit of a discussion. We've got about 10 minutes here, so we're going to switch on everyone's mic and we're going to switch on everyone's camera here as well, so we can be a little more interactive. We can get to know our speakers a little better. So we'll wait until everyone is seen and everyone's available. Excellent, fantastic. First of all, thank you all for such a great presentation. So questions, I suppose, Svetlana, the obvious one will be to start with you, because you opened up a presentation to talk about the Dow and IOC carbon partnership. And you talk about the power of sport and sports partnerships and the kind of different, the way that sports partnerships are evolving going forward to incorporate more purpose, more sustainability. Do you see this as a growing trend? Do you think more sports properties and organizations like Dow will develop projects like this going forward?
Thank you, Matthew. Good question, and I believe and we hope so. Well, from the corporate sponsors' perspective, we always been challenged to provide some value. And the good news is that the value can be defined from different angles. For example, for Dow, everything we do should be aligned with our 4 strategic brand pillars: sustainability, innovation, inclusion, and customer centricity. And that's why we believe that our carbon partnership with IOC is really good example for this type of next generation of purposeful partnership. And the era of pay-to-play sponsorship is quite, I would say, already outdated. And also for sport organization, it's a good opportunity to engage with your fans and maybe attract more business corporate sponsors.
I want to stay on the topic of partnership with you, Simon, because a huge element of the part of your presentation was about collaboration, about partnerships. But when you're setting objectives as partners, as 2 organizations coming together, how can you go about this in a practical sense?
Good question. I think, well, first, partners need to understand the specific parameters of the collaboration and also understand, the prime drivers. So taking a carbon project perspective and the Dow IOC program, having a framework which provides a set of guidelines from which projects can be advanced is greatly beneficial, and it provides project partners some clarity to set those objectives. So to set things like the emission reduction ambition, the potential co-benefits of project activities, as well as the monitoring plan, etc. I think it's also important to often have a formalized partnership agreement in place, which includes the specific detail that will be required to meet those objectives. And it's often through that process of putting down the specific detail that the objectives actually are even further crystallized and consolidated. I think that things like setting the implementation period of the collaboration from the project boundary perspective, as well as the monitoring plan and responsibilities that will go into the quantification of emission reductions, is very helpful. I think oftentimes it's important also to include climate benefits ownership transfer, where there's any potential of double counting between project partners. So yeah, I think those two things, having the kind of common understanding of the parameters of the engagement, and also putting things down formally, enables project partners to have a clear and common understanding from which to set objectives.
So just moving on from the collaboration to the innovation and technological aspect of the presentation, Faye, that was obviously a major part of your element of the presentation. Perhaps you can talk a little bit more about how at Dow you foster this kind of innovative mindset to develop these products. How do you create that kind of company culture?
Sure. Well, I would first say that there are many ways in which Dow would foster innovation. I spoke about one of them in my talk, which was what we call doing voice of customer. That's really going out and getting feedback from your customers, maybe your suppliers. We work with universities, other external partners, and really to get their feedback. And by having their feedback, it can help drive our R&D development efforts, and including all the targets. I would say from a corporate standpoint, Dow does make use of what I would call like an online repository, where anyone can go and submit an idea and others can comment on the idea. And then there's a group that is responsible for, say, periodically going into that repository and looking at the ideas and fleshing them out and deciding should they be supported or not, and so forth. Then I think to take it a little further, once there is an idea that is supported, we do then put it through what we call like our innovation pipeline. And we do follow a process. It's like a customized process on how we would go about to commercialize new technology or new products. And it is a stage-gated process. And I think Simon mentioned this in his presentation. He talked about innovation is only innovation when it's commercialized. And so our process does focus on commercialization, obviously the end goal. So when you look at a project, we have like a technical lead and a commercial lead, because we understand the importance that you got to keep the two together. And we consider incentives also as part of our innovation process. Like, how do you get that new technology or new product adopted? And for example, that carbon challenge contest is an example of trying to adapt. And certainly we hope as we roll out new generations of catalysts, we'll continue to come up with those kind of creative programs to incentivize adoption.
So in effect, what you're saying is, if you want to be an innovative organization, it's a good idea to leverage your whole workforce to get ideas from a kind of cross sector of people working for your company.
Yeah. So you're talking about that online repository I mentioned?
Mm-hmm. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is a tool that is open to any employee in the company. I mean, you could be a new hire, you could be on the executive team. And you can submit ideas that don't even pertain to your area of your job focus. And they can be all kind of ideas, new product ideas, or even supply chain cost reductions. It could be any idea that involves innovation. And I think that, Dow believes is that, innovation can happen anywhere. And so they want to open it up to all the employees to be able to go out there. And what's great about the tool is that there are like these there's a comment aspect. So if you put an idea, others can go in and comment on it, either what they like about it, or they could build upon it. And so you can really get a good stimulating conversation going with some of the ideas. And then that helps, obviously, the team that has to go forth and review the ideas, with more comments on them. It helps them to better flesh out the idea and decide, does it make sense to do it, and which group within Dow would better handle it.
Last word for you, PJ, because I was really intrigued to discover the kind of link between the environment, social, economic element of investing in nature. If I'm working for an organization and I'd like to engage my colleagues, my leadership team in investing in environmental projects and really putting forward a business case? You know, what's the best way for me to articulate that?
Well, I think, you know, the major corporations that we work with recognize that input from their employees is really important, you know, and what they value. And in looking at their approach to addressing sustainability in some of these big, whether it's climate issues or whatever it might be, they like to have they're looking at ways to, first of all, recruit and retain high quality employees. So input from those employees that this is of interest to them is really important. And I have to say, now we're finding out the employees are making their voices known. So, you know, the next step that really ends up happening is as they're making their evaluations of what their initiatives might be, being able to use in all areas metrics to create the scenario plans and cost benefits to determine what really is going to deliver on, what approach is going to deliver on them best achieving their objectives. It kind of engages everyone and allows for the actual potential values and impacts to be communicated. And then everyone gets on board with supporting the initiatives that will be underway.
Thank you, PJ. We're coming up to time now, so I will leave the last word with the audience now. And this is the final poll question, which I set you just before Faye and PJ gave their elements of the presentation. Based on today's webinar, where do you see the most impact coming from in terms of addressing climate change? So I'll launch that poll now. Is it through the developments of low carbon technology, through a coalition of partners working together? Is it a combination of technology and partnerships, or is it other? And we'll give you about 30 seconds to answer this one before we wrap up the session. Just a few more seconds now just to get everyone's opinion. Okay, good. So 14% of you think it's through the development of low carbon technologies. 33% have gone for a coalition of partners working together. The majority, almost half, 47% say tech and partnerships are just as important as each other. And 6% of you think it's something else. Before we go to some key takeaways from today's session. So the first one would be sports marketing can increase awareness and adoption around sustainable technology. Investing in nature can also generate a positive economic and social impact. Collaboration between stakeholders is crucial to success, and investing in low carbon innovation in high emitting industries can have the highest impact. I just want to say a big thank you to our audience today for getting involved with our polls and asking their questions. And a big thank you to all of our panelists, Svetlana Oglobina, Simon Phillips, Faye Miller and PJ Marshall, who were very generous with their time and really insightful with the value they brought today. A recording of this webinar will be sent to your email in the next day or so. Please feel free to rewatch and share it with any colleagues that may find the content useful or interesting. And don't forget to mark the 29th of October in your diary. That's the date of our next webinar, which will focus on addressing waste and food challenges through sustainable packaging. We look forward to seeing you there. In the meantime, stay safe and goodbye for now.